Good evening and welcome. My name is Susan Johnson. I am a gold leader from Rhode Island. I am delighted to see so many people on this call. So that you can see, I've left the gallery screen up for a second so you might recognize somebody else, but I also wanted the opportunity to reach out and recognize a couple of people. I have had the great fortune in Young Living to be part of a mastermind where I met some amazing other gold and platinum leaders. And then I also had the great fortune this summer to travel to Uganda with another group of exceptional women. And I took the time to reach out to everybody to see if they wouldn't want to come on to this call. This is, no one showing up to my workshop, so now what? Because we're finding that there are people that are struggling with getting people to workshops. And so I thought instead of just doing this for my own downline, we would invite a cross-section from around the country and Canada. So welcome everyone. And those of you that were part of my crossline crew, whether you are a crossline leader or a crossline person that's on, go ahead and just wave at the camera so we know who you guys are. So those are my crossline folks. So these are the folks that I work with through my Gold Mastermind, and we did a lot of things together. And then those of you that are here because I met you in Uganda or it's your team here, give us a wave. All right, love it, love it, love it. So again, we have people from all over the world. So again, I'm Susan Johnson. I'm going to have my sister Casey Conrad wave at you. Say hi, Casey.
Hello.
So Casey is my leader, platinum leader. I'm going to have Casey actually facilitate part of the call tonight. She does an amazing job with it, can keep it on task and focused. And the goal with this is that by the time this call is done, you will have some strategies to run more successful workshops so that you can't say, hey, no one's showing up to my workshops. It's a roundtable. We are going to let you come on and talk and join the conversation. But I wanted to run an exercise first, and then I wanted Casey to go through some of the framework of a good workshop. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to grab your pen and your paper, and I would like you to list 5 things that you think you need to do to host a successful workshop. So put them down, 5 things that you think you need to do to host a successful workshop. And we'll give you a couple of minutes to write those down. Casey, while they're doing that, why don't you just quickly give an introduction about who you are?
Well, as Sue said, I'm Casey Conrad. I'm a platinum leader with Young Living. And my other life, for the past 30 years, I have been a sales and marketing consultant specializing in the health and fitness industry. So I have the awesome job, if you would, since I'm self-employed, to get to travel around the world speaking to groups about how to be better at their business. And so even though in my other work, I'm not necessarily talking about a Young Living workshop, when we talk about an event, there are some basics that no matter what organization, what product, what service that you are selling or trying to offer people, that there's some commonality there in some key things that make a successful event or activity. So,
okay, so does everybody have their 5 things down? If not, keep writing. But now I want you to look at those 5 things. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to hierarchy which one you think is the most important, the next most important, the next most important, the next, and then the least important of the 5 that you put down. Just put a number next to it.
And if I could just give them a strategy for that, Sue, like
sure, go ahead.
This weekend, the best and easiest way to create a hierarchy, to really force yourself to do it, is to ask this question. If I could only have one, is it A or B? And then let's say it's B. Is it B or C? B or D? B or E? And get to number 1, and then go back and do it again, and do it again. And by asking yourself, if I could only have one, would I want this or this, this or this, this or this? That's the best way to create a successful hierarchy.
That's a great strategy too. All right, I'm going to jump over to speaker view just so you know, Casey. So you and I will be the only two that will be seen on the screen. As I see you sip your Ningxia, Nitro, Zing.
No, this is my kombucha.
Okay. Love it.
I wouldn't have a Zing at this hour. That would be very bad.
Very funny. Okay. So that you can still do this as we go forward, but I'm sure most people have been able to at least get a good start on their hierarchy. At this point, I'm going to actually turn this over to Casey, and I'm going to ask that Casey talk about hosting a successful workshop, and then we will come back and go from the round table from there. So Casey, take it away.
Great. So I want to talk to you about 6 things tonight, and I think they're in the order of importance at least for me, but if you put them in a different order, that would be okay as well. And the first thing to hosting a successful event actually has absolutely nothing to do with the event itself. It is having a strong mindset and constitution, so that you believe that A, what you have to offer is of value, and B, that your event is going to be successful. One of the things that I see in the team when they're talking about their event, nobody's showing up for my event. I can never. Like, they make these gross generalizations. No one ever shows up to my event. Really? Ever? Never? Come on, So having that mindset and that belief that what you are sharing, you're not out selling Young Living products. You're helping people improve the quality of their life and their family's life. And having that belief and, like I said, that conviction, that passion for what you do is going to set a solid foundation so that A, people are attracted to your event, not only outwardly, but unconsciously attracted to your event. But B, you have to believe that what you have is of value, so that when it happens that 4 out of 15 people that said they were going to come only show up, that you're not beating yourself up and off the side licking your wounds. You're like, hey, your loss, baby, not mine. You missed the most amazing workshop that we had, and the 4 people that were there were exactly the 4 that needed to hear this. So having that, and Susan and I take this, we get teased a lot from our family members. We're like absolute. We could walk in a room in a pile of crap and we go, hey, there's got to be a pony in here. I mean, there's got to be something positive. We are just always, it doesn't matter how bad it gets. There's something good's going to come out of this. It might be 10 years from now, but I know that this is good. And as crazy as that sounds, that mindset really helps you to get through the tough times. So that's number 1. Okay, so now let's get into the actual mechanics. In marketing, your headline is 80% of your ad's effectiveness. So what I want to talk to you about is your invitation for your event. Your invitation has to be strong. And I'm not going to get into it here, but just go online and Google the top 100 headline words. It's going to be things like new, discover, exciting, revolutionary. And when you see the list by itself, all 100 of these words, your first reaction is, oh my God, that sounds like it's out of an infomercial on Gunthy Ranker, right? You're just like, eh. But when you really start to understand the power of a headline and those words that engage people emotionally, the reason they're used is because they work. And even when you know it's some cheesy infomercial, it still gets your attention. And that's the crazy thing about it. So, and like me, I am a marketer. I structure headlines, and yet it's like I take a double take, you know, if I get something in my mail and I know it's junk mail, but I have to open it. It's like you gotta look, you know, it's like the present that you're shaking, you just gotta see what's in there. So you have to work your headlines so that it's not, you know, oils 101. Oh, that sounds fun. You know, that sounds really interesting. Like I'm going to learn 101. I don't want 101, you know. Discover the secrets to optimal health naturally. Whoa. You know, that's like, yeah, I want that, okay? And, you know, it's amazing if you just go Google. There's a guy who was one of my mentors. His name's Jay Abraham. Unbelievable, Matt. The most arrogant person I have ever met in my life, but he has a good reason to be. I mean, he's made multi-billionaires in all kinds of businesses around the world, but he's got some great content on how to create good headlines. So you want to have a strong headline, and you want to make sure that your once you've got your headline, and of course, you know, the basics, like, do you have some compelling bullet points, some takeaways? Do you have the date clear? You know, is the time clear? Is the RSVP clear? You know, you want to make sure that all those are there, but that's like so basic, I don't even want to cover it. But the things that where people make their biggest mistake is they've got their invitation and now they just post it up on social media. Or they just email it to people in a blind copy, or, gosh forbid, a CC, even worse, you know. You don't want to tell everybody who you've invited. Be personal. You want to use 2 unconscious tools of influence when you're inviting. And there's a great book by a guy by the name of James Cialdini. It's called Influence, and he talks about the 6 laws of unconscious influence, and 2 of them that you want to use in your invitation process are, number 1, commitment and consistency. Commitment and consistency says that when you get a commitment from someone, unless they're a sociopath, they feel committed to following through with what they verbally told you. So the problem with all this technology, with Facebook and all these events and groups, is that it's easy for people to say, yeah, I'm going, but they really haven't committed, right? They've just kind of clicked the little button, and if something else comes up along the way, it's easy to not go because they haven't actually said it to your face, okay? So number 1, use commitment and consistency. What does that mean? Let's say somebody says they're going to your event, so you're using the technology. Now, personally message them and say, hey, Susan, fantastic. I'm so excited that you're coming to my event on the 12th. I particularly sent you the invitation because I know your son, blah, 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 or I know you're dealing with blah, blah, blah. So you're really now tapping into something personal. You're telling them you're going to give them something that they are wanting or needing, and that not only creates commitment and consistency, but the second thing it does is it taps into what's called reciprocity. And reciprocity says give and take. So now, if I'm going to give you something, you feel like you have to give something back to me. So even better, if you were giving some giveaways, let's say you made some little roller balls, and then you say to her, by the way, because you're one of the first people that have registered, when you get to the door, I'm going to give you a very special roll-on, right? So you're using these 2 tools, commitment and consistency and reciprocity, to leverage your invitation process. You want to make sure that you are following, if you need to get outside of your own circle, right? So if you've already tapped out, and this is in, you know, game plan. I'm not going to talk to you tonight about game plan things particularly because you can read the book, right? But Harnish talks about the 350 rule, getting 3 people to invite 50 people. We're going to talk a little bit later about that when we talk about the mistakes that some people have made using the harnish method as it relates to, well, who do you invite, and do you tell them who to invite? Do you at least focus it, et cetera, et cetera. But you do want to make sure that if you've tapped out your own inner circle, that you're expanding it. And don't be afraid of asking for outright referrals. You know, the people that say they're coming, get on the phone and say, hey, Sue, fantastic. Listen, I still have a few spots left. Who do you know that I could forward an invitation to that you think, or that I could send you the invitation and you could tag me, whatever the case may be. So don't be afraid to actually ask for the people that have said they're coming to then get a referral from them. That's going to do 2 things. Number 1, it's going to allow you to exponentially grow your invitation list without your own inner circle. But 2, now if Susan refers somebody who now says they're coming, bam, that creates more of a tie-in or a buy-in for her to need to show up, okay? So that was point number 2. Yeah, let's see if I can get through all 6. Number 3, not having enough lead time. And I know Harnish talks about this, but I want to talk to you about it in a couple of different ways. First of all, when you talk about the lead time, and now we're talking about the marketing, right? The lead time really is about the marketing that goes from the invitation time to the actual event time. So there's some things that you need to do in there. First of all, during this lead time, you want to trickle out some what I call hooks. What do I mean by that? Well, on your invitation, don't dump all the good stuff, right? Save some of it. So now, hey, have you registered for the upcoming Discover the Revolutionary Secrets to Better Health Naturally? Because did you hear about the prizes we're giving away, right? So during this lead time, you want to be able to put out more hooks about the prizes that you're going to give away. Maybe you start talking about the foods that you're going to make that incorporate natural things, like maybe like Sue and I are talking about having a workshop where we're going to teach people how to make kombucha. And we've been, talking about this, and, so that could be a really cool thing. Everybody that comes is going to leave with a recipe and a SCOBY to make their own kombucha. You say, really? Yeah, well, if I was going to talk about digestion products, that would be a really cool thing to add to that workshop. So think about how you could do that and layer that in, but now you're peppering that between your invitation time and your actual event, so that, it might be that, Wanda is really excited just about the headline, but when I talk about the SCOBY giveaway, Susan says, oh man, I've always wanted to make my own kombucha, right? And I could never get a SCOBY because my friend was, 5 hours away, or whatever the case may be. So what might be attractive to one person is going to be different for another person, and this gives you another new reason to reach out to people, okay? It's not just the same, oh, did you see my invitation, right? It's new information about your actual event, okay? So food, fun, just friendship. Some people might be sitting at home and they're lonely, and the thought of being around a like-minded group of positive people could be the thing that gets them off the couch and gets them to come. Of course, gifts, prizes, special guests, any of this kind of stuff is really, really cool. Also, We don't have time to go into this, but I want to at least mention it. Those of you that attended our workshop that we did this past winter with the crossline group here, you know the term multi-pillar approach to marketing. What this means is that you can't rely on just Facebook. You have to say, I'm going to do Facebook, I'm going to do a personal invitation that I mail in the good old-fashioned mail, I'm going to send emails, I'm going to do some social media posts, so that it's not just one thing that you've got, and I've got a referral campaign and et cetera, et cetera. So you have to have what we call a multi-pillar approach. Okay, next. Number 4, you're not confirming. In business, any business, think about your hairdresser, think about your dentist, think about your doctor's appointment. You get a call 24 hours beforehand, of course. And in today's day and age, you're getting text reminders an hour before your appointment, okay? You have to confirm, because the confirmation pulls back in the commitment and consistency. Oh, that's right. I forgot I told her, I promised her, right? And I've got that special rollerball for you, Sue. So you're tying that back in. Hey, look, I got nothing wrong with guilt, folks. Guilt works, because if I can get someone to the workshop, I know I'm going to change their life, right? I know that. I just know that if I can get them there, it's going to be a turning point. They may not leave with a premium starter kit. It might not be their time, but it might be that pebble that is one step closer to them changing their life, okay? So confirm your appointments 24 hours beforehand, and then send out the text at least an hour beforehand. Number 5, you're not consistent with your events. Now, this is across the board. Number 1, you're not consistent with having events. But number 2, you're not consistent with all of the things that we just talked about. If you think that the rules are different for Susan and I because we're a platinum and a gold on hosting an event, think again. If we don't follow those recipes for success, it doesn't matter how many members we have in our team. It doesn't matter how many times we've done it. Consistency in a systematic approach is absolutely the pillar of long-term success with anything in life. And part of that consistency is what we call KPIs, key performance indicator. Are you measuring? Do you know how many people you actually invited? Do you know how many people said they were coming and how many came? Are you measuring this and tracking it? Is your performance getting better over time, or is it getting worse? And if it's getting worse, then take a look at your KPIs and ask yourself, well, what am I not doing? Oh, I didn't confirm because Johnny had a fever and my mother-in-law showed up on my doorstep and I stubbed my toe and, whatever other, life got in the way. But that measurement of your own KPIs as to what was the time frame that I gave, how was the headline, what were the number of people who shared, how many referrals did I get, all of those things need to be measured so that you can be sure that you're tweaking as you go along, because we all know that in network marketing, what gets duplicated gets results, okay? And finally, this goes back to number 1, the mindset, ties it back in, and that is a negative, bad attitude when you have a less than successful event. And I'm not going to say a failure, because there is no such thing as failure. There's only learning experiences, right? That's it. And I know that sounds so cliche, but most of you on this call are either mothers or are aunts or something. And I'm going to tell you right now, when a toddler or when a baby gets up to start taking its first steps and it takes a half a step and it falls, you don't go, oh my God, my child just fell. No, everybody goes, yay, you took a half a step, yay, right? And that's because it's progress, right? We say progress, not perfection. And when it comes to these events, you have to, yay, yourself. You know, the first time Susan and I did a social Sunday, we stared at each other for 2.5 hours. The second time we did a social Sunday, one person and their baby showed up. The third time, I think it was 3. I mean, it took us like 5 or 6 months before we even had more than 5 or 6 people, enough to pull out a second table at our social Sundays. So, but we didn't go, oh my goodness, no, we're such a failure, right? No, yeah, okay, well, we got to keep doing it. So having that positive, what did I learn from this? How do I make it better? You know, what do I change next time? And good for me, I'm still doing it. So, hey, that's not too bad. I stayed pretty much to the time frame, which is unusual for me. I'm sure you're all thinking, yeah, no joke. That's my list.
So Casey, I want to quickly, before I open this up, I do want to quickly talk about Sarah Harnish's Facebook, invite 50 people. Because I think that although I think it's a great idea, I think that it also can cause some confusion, or it can cause you to have failure.
Yeah, well, okay, so first of all, look, it's a great idea, and I absolutely encourage using it, okay? But here's the problem, the challenge. Now you're relying on other people to fill your workshop for you, okay? So I think that that's a great, augmentation to what you're doing, but you can't expect to do that and not have to do anything else yourself, all these things that we've just talked about, and succeed, because it's too much of a loose, okay. I call up my good friend and I say to her, hey, you want to win this basket? Just invite 50 people in your Facebook group. And I'm going to give you a basket as long as you show up. Well, look, most women like free stuff. I mean, I like free stuff, Everybody likes free stuff. And so the thought of easily going click, 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 send. But has that enlisted any of the things that we have just talked about? No, it hasn't. So there's no reciprocity. There's no commitment and consistency, and you don't even know where these people are. Okay, if it's a Facebook event, doesn't matter where they are. Well, what if it's a local event? This person just invited 25 people that are from Kentucky, where she used to live. Yeah, I got my basket, but nobody's coming from Kentucky when I live in Rhode Island. So I think it's a great concept, and it should be one of the pillars in the marketing when you have tapped out of your inner circle. But do not be delusional enough to think that that alone is going to succeed. It's not. Sorry. I'm not being a harnish killer. I'm just being a realist.
Yeah. And I think that, one point that I would make to everyone is that, the other thing that goes along with this are relationships. Your hosting successful workshops is a lot about the relationships that you start with the people you know best, where you show that confident approach, you show that great event, you get them involved, and then they're more comfortable bringing other people. There's a whole point of getting to know people and making sure that you're reaching out to them and that they don't feel like they're being attacked, but they're being, again, invited into something, and that you've created that bond. Because truthfully, if I don't know, somebody called me up that I kind of knew from high school and said, would you come to this event? I might not be quick to go, but where if they had created a relationship back with me first, learned what I did in that, I'd be like, oh, that's really exciting. Again, like Casey said, talking about I noticed this, or we could help you with that, or this supports that, or whatever it happens to be. But creating that relationship is really important. I think that's key.
Absolutely. And that's where I say to people, and Alan and Linda talk about this, our upline in Australia talk about this all the time. I mean, I quite frankly would rather see you find 3 people who you said, hey ladies, I started on this journey and I want us to get together once a month at Panera, and each of us brings one of the Young Living products that we've been using and gives a little 5-minute intro on it. And then the next time they bring 3 friends or 2 friends or 1 friend, and together we create a journey of Young Living product understanding, and how does that impact my kids' eczema, my kids' ADD, and I'm not saying that we're treating or curing anything, but how do they get supported by that? And now you've got 10 people that are all on Essential Rewards that are raving fans that understand more about healthy living. That's going to create a hell of a lot bigger ripple than 5 Facebook events with 3 people inviting 50 people. It just is. Because if you can get people to embrace the Young Living lifestyle, not just oils, but understanding digestion and dealing with discomforts and how do I support my metabolism. If you can start getting them to understand that, man, you are going to have a tribe.
And you don't have to be knowledgeable in all of that. There's tons of information out there to make very easy, quick, get them to try seminars. And having worked with people around you to try those things first and have them come and say, oh, I tried that, it worked really well. Because social proof is really huge. And if you can get social proof in a smaller setting, it starts to grow to a larger setting.
And so, look, you can go on and go to TED Talk and Google digestion seminar or ADD or whatever it is, and you're going to find an expert. You could all just say, let's go watch that 18-minute TED Talk and get together and talk about, okay, what Young Living product would work with that. I mean, so there's so much out there. It's just a matter of having that focus and that commitment, that passion and that mindset. Hey, we're changing lives here, and let's do it together. So anyway.
Okay, I'm going to take everybody off mute because this is where we want to get you involved. We want to know, first of all, I want you to look at your list, take a look at your list, and see if your list matched up to some of the things that Casey said. So Casey, go through your 6.
So first was the mindset, having a strong mindset and belief that, what you're doing is changing lives and you are going to have a successful event. The second talked about the invitation. And this, I was talking about, the headline, strong personal outreach, and of course, tapping into things like referrals and those 2 unconscious tools of influence, reciprocity. And so that's really all about the invitation, okay? Good, solid invitation. Then not having enough lead time to do the marketing right. And we talked about some of the different things, gifts, prizes, fun, et cetera, not confirming appointments, not being consistent with both the events as well as kind of making yourself accountable with your KPIs. And then that final one is, are you negative? Are you beating yourself up when you don't have an event that's as successful as you wanted it to be?
Yep. And obviously the follow-up that goes with that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even say follow-up. I take that as post-event, but yeah, of course, because many, many people will not buy on their first exposure, and you've got to follow up.
Okay, so I am going to take everybody off of mute. If you want to make a comment, something you'd like to add, you have a question, I want you to raise your hand. We want your, what was a revelation to you? What would you add? So everybody is unmuted. Raise your hand, shout out. Does anybody want to say anything? Who's that? Go ahead, Denise.
Yeah, this is great because I have been having a hard time getting people to classes, and I kind of just quit altogether, and it stalled my business out. And so with that, it was kind of a blessing in disguise in one aspect because it pushed me to go one-on-ones with people. But this last class that we did, I'm super excited about. Without knowing all of this, I did most of this, and it was a successful class. 9 people out of the 15 showed up, and that was amazing. And what I'm saying is your list here is spot on, and thank you for that.
Awesome. Anybody else?
I'd like to know what specific things she did different that made that event more successful.
The biggest thing is that, first of all, I did hand invites, which I've never done. Then I followed that up with a Facebook event and invited all of those people also. And then I did callback calls 2 days before. And then my partner, that she was, the other person, she did text the day of. So it worked out really well. And that was, I think, the key to it. And then I was posting every single day in that Facebook group about the products and about the things that we'd be talking about so that they had, an idea of what they were going to see.
Perfect. Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And now you've had 9 people come to a successful workshop who will now come again and bring somebody.
Right.
Great.
And I have to say, too, that Denise, knowing you fell into, I'm sure, number 1, too. You have more of a belief in yourself now. And so that's conveyed very, very well to people around you.
And remember, success breeds success.
Right.
And that mindset is so important. So many times that someone has what it takes, but they're afraid to show it, or they're afraid to not know something. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever given to people about giving a workshop is when someone says to you, well, what do I do about this, or how does that work? You look at me and go, wow, what a great question. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never been asked that before, but let's find out. Does anybody here know? And if not, we'll look it up and get back to you. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. You don't walk into your local grocery store and expect them to know everything. You don't walk into Home Depot and expect them to know everything, right? You expect them to be able to find the answers for you, but you never expect them to know everything. You shouldn't have to know everything. You are not a genius. Even Gary Young doesn't know everything, right? So don't expect that of yourself, but know what the answer is. Wow, what a great question. I've never had that asked before. Does anybody here know it? If not, okay, we'll find out. It gets you out of any situation that comes up. It takes away that fear of, they're going to ask me something I don't know. And then the confidence goes and your shoulders shrink and you think, I don't know how to answer that. So what? I don't know how to answer that. That's great. Now I will know how to answer it, right? It only makes me better in the future. Anybody else out there?
On top of that, just mindset, the whole mindset is huge, because before I was thinking that anytime I would have done all of those things, I was bugging somebody. And I had to retrain my brain to think that, no, I'm not bugging them. Life's busy. People forget. Invitations are lost. You're just helping them to remember. And you have to have the mindset that you're not bugging. You're actually helping somebody. So mindset is a huge, huge one.
Yeah, and when your doctor calls you to say we're confirming your appointment, you don't bug me. No, it's expected. It's expected.
Yeah. And again, you've invited them.
Their time's valuable.
Yep. Absolutely. And you have to think your personal time is valuable, right?
Right.
See, they agree.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else have a comment out there, a question or a challenge that you're having? Go ahead, Valerie.
I definitely agree with that mindset. I feel like it's holding me back that I don't know everything. So, how am I going to get people to want to join if I don't know everything? So that's definitely holding me back.
So why do you feel you need to know everything, and how can you find out what you need to know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's it. I can definitely look up the answers, and, I guess I'm just more afraid of not knowing the answer, but knowing that not everybody knows the answer to everything definitely helps.
Yeah. And again, there's a way to handle the situation. Wow, what a great question. I've never been asked that before.
Right.
And the other thing, let me just make a suggestion is, find a topic that you're super passionate about.
Right.
Like for me, it's sports and athletics. So the products that are, the Ningxia and the Nitro and the Mega-Cal and the Mineral Essence and the Amino, so find products that you're passionate about, know enough about those, and keep the workshop focused, at least initially, on a topic that you have a personal passion for, and you've got a reasonable knowledge of the products that you want to talk about. And then again, if other products come up, you say, you know what, I've never used that product personally, but let's plan on being back here 30 days from now and do part 2. Is everybody up for that?
Okay.
Okay, so I see some hand waves. I've never seen those before. So Sarah, go ahead.
This is kind of just piggybacking on what Valerie was saying. She's like, she expressed, she doesn't know everything. It's totally okay not to know everything. One thing I have noticed with other people is if you're doing a class, whatever, and you demonstrate that you may not know everything, it may be a positive thing to who you're teaching, because they feel overwhelmed. They go into it and be like, I kind of like this. I really like this. This is a business. I don't have to. I can learn it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Okay.
If you come across as a professional that knows absolutely everything, how can I do that? I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, and especially if you show some humility that, hey, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. People have a really positive response to that. And they're like, oh, okay, well, then this is somebody I can work with. They are willing to work with me and figure out how to answer this question or look things up. I'm at that.
Well, and they can trust that you'll answer them truthfully if you don't know, right? Melissa, you had your hand raised.
So before you do that, just remember the expression that we learned way too late in our Young Living business. The more you know, the slower you grow. And it is true, because when you become super knowledgeable and you get up in front of the group, the person looks at you and says, I'll never know that much. When you keep it basic, I would rather have somebody say, I could do better than her. That's a great place to be in a presentation.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I can't agree with that more. I originally raised my hand because I was so excited about the mindset being the most important part of the class. I loved everything you said, Casey. But yes, making sure it's duplicatable, as they say. And almost every home class that I've given that I haven't gone, off topic and spouted out and been the expert in the room, I've had somebody ask me about the business, like, how can I do this? And but I also wanted to reiterate the success that we had. For the first time, I've been doing more postcards and mailings, and having a mailing for our last rally, as well as a Facebook event, tripled our numbers. So I'm really excited to report that good news and inspire people to do the same.
Wow, that's great. And there is power to snail mail these days. I mean, again, people aren't using it, so there is power to it. A handwritten note, a little invitation, again, something else, even something nicely done. It does make a difference today. It is
I
nice.
think that's probably the reason that you had the 9 people out of 15 come. I think people don't get snail mail anymore, especially any that's not bills.
Yeah, and we try to make the snail mail handwritten. Without, handwrite the address, handwrite the return address. We don't, so that people feel compelled to open it because it looks personal. People are looking for personal. There is no personal left in the world, right? It's now a Home Depot. It's now, everything. Here in Rhode Island, one of the biggest chains that we've had around forever that was known as the local backyard business, Benny's, is going out of business because they can't compete with online, and that people are looking for that touch, and you are that touch, right? And you can touch them on any part of their life. Children, pets, food, digestion, mind, emotions. We can touch on everything and help them support a healthy lifestyle. Okay, who else has got a nice comment? Come on, what are some of the questions you might have? Go ahead, Antoinette.
So one of the things, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. One of the things that I had my first event back in July, and it was great because I was excited about it. I was passionate about it. All the other things that you had talked about, Casey, I had done. Did the follow-up, sent a good invitation. And one of the things that I made a mistake about, which was a good learning mistake, was the 3 people invite 50. Well, I missed the 3 part, so I don't know which 3 invited people. I personally invited 83 people. My invite went to 485 people. I was completely overwhelmed by the time the event happened. But I was able to reel that back in when I got in front of people, because people kept replying, yes, I'll be there. Yes, I'll be there. There were at least 50 people that stated they would be there. I was kind of psyched that the rest of those people did not show up, because I only had room for 200 people. Who ended up showing up was a good group of 25 people, it was excellent, because it was just the right amount of people in the room, and I was kind of stoked. But what caused a little extra stress is the baskets that I needed to prepare ahead of time, because I didn't know how many people had invited 50 people, because the invite kept going up and up. Even as of the day of the event, it spiked up 50 people. So that's a mistake that you probably don't want to repeat, that I won't repeat for sure.
Yeah, and it was a great, Antoinette, it was a great lesson for you and a great lesson for me. I kept watching your numbers going up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, And then again, it shows you really need to be mindful of who you give that 50 to 50 for, but also, trying to keep track of the numbers themselves. Great. Thanks for sharing that. That was great. Anybody else? Jump out, because I can't see everybody if there's something you want to say.
So what I'm realizing is that this takes more time than just and that's not a bad comment. It's just that it requires more thought. It requires more planning than just throwing up a Facebook event and renting a random room at a Big B Coffee. It takes, people see all of those. I can't even tell you how many of those I've done per month and have one person show up, or, nobody show up. I went an entire year without anybody showing up for a class because they were boring. They didn't cover any of this stuff. So to be if I could cut that down and being rather than having, 4 to 6 classes of 1 to 2 people, or of no shows, to having 1 to 2 big events, I feel like that's much more efficient than it would be had I spending all that time for nobody. So the planning, it seems pays off a lot more than the other. Just to rant, it was just my first thought. I was this would take a whole lot more time, but I was it seems much more valuable than the other invites.
Yeah, and you're treating your business like a business. Go ahead, Casey.
That's Sue. That was your words to my mouth. It's a business, folks. You talk to anyone who owns a retail business, and you ask them, if you just put up a Facebook invite, and would anybody show up? No, they spend thousands of dollars on a newspaper ad and nobody shows up. So this is a business, and as much as we'd like to think, I'm not saying there aren't times that you're going to have success with something like that, but in today's very busy world, it's going to require some thought and some follow-up.
Right.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean, for those of you who just want to share once in a while, it doesn't mean that you have to do this every single month, but you have to be consistent in what you do. So if you're someone who does this kind of part-time, you want to pay off your products, maybe you do one every 3 months, but you're consistent about what you do and how you maintain the relationships in between. Maybe you're someone who wants to go for it. Like, Kaya, I know you want to be a business builder. I know that this is what you want to do. So for you, this is an opportunity to take that business to the next level, try some new steps and get people in, and then train your people that you know that are business builders, right?
We were 500 away from executive last month.
Oh, you got this.
One leg.
You got this. You got this. Yep, absolutely. So know that, again, whether you are an every day this is my business, or I'm only doing this to pay for my products, that consistent and persistent is very important in your business, in how you invite. And, Kaya made a good point. She said she shows up at a coffee shop. Well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with showing up at a coffee shop if it's every second Tuesday of every month, that they know they're going to find you there from 10 to 12, so they can come and answer questions and bring products and ask you. That's consistent and persistent. It might not get you lots of people, but it gives people an idea of where they can find you if they want to see you personally, right? And you could invite people to come one-on-one, so it could work. But just throwing up this time on this day and this time on that day, you might get one or two, you might get no one, but being consistent and persistent will get you much farther.
Well, I've just figured out that I've been so rushed with it all. Like by the last week of the month, I want to plan all these classes for the next month and do all this different stuff. And then I don't have enough time to plan it all. And then I get there and it's just not the same and nobody shows up. So I'm like, if I can cut that down and do the 1 to 2 with being as intentional as possible, like that just makes so much more sense than 4 to 6 empty rooms.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Case.
Called a marketing plan, and you really, we did a whole thing on that in a workshop this past year. But basically, plan your entire year out, even if you only have one event on your calendar for the whole 12 months, but you've got it there, and so you're not running around at the last minute. You know ahead of time, and you're creating that intention and that organization.
Yeah, and if you know that, like, this month is immunity month with Young Living, everything's about building immune. If you know that every September you want to talk about immune, you know that you're going to host an event about immunity, right? It makes it very easy to put that on your calendar, right? February's Heart Month. That would be a great time to talk about MindWise and Omegas, and you could get that on your calendar now. Again, what you do and how you do it, at least it's on the calendar. Then as you get closer, you can set the events up. But having that forethought of what you want to do in what months, then you're thinking about it now. It's not like Kaya said, okay, now it's 2 weeks before and it's October and I really wanted to talk about immunity or digestion or whatever it happens to be, right? So having those ideas are really good. All right. Any other questions? We are just about. What's that?
Potato chips, Sarah. You just totally dumped the bag, Crumbs. We caught it on video.
That's being authentic.
Love it. All right. So, are there any other questions? We're just about an hour in. I want to keep this to an hour. Are there any other questions? No? Well, I hope you've all found this interesting and enlightening and an opportunity for you to share. I will put this up. Those of you that know me, email me. If you have a leader on this, contact your leader. I will share this video with everybody. We want this to be used again and again. And if you like this topic, please let us know, because I'm more than happy to set up another one of these at another time for something that people want to cover. We find someone who's really good. Like, I know that Melissa's really good at setting a mindset. We talked about that today. So we could do some of these things. So I love the fact that this is crossline, and I love the fact that people are coming from all over the country, all over the Northeast and Canada, and it's just a great way to do it. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I see some raised hands. So so Joy Anderson, go ahead.
Hi. Sorry I know you're just finishing up. But my question was more, how do you find people to invite to these events? Because I've been doing my Facebook and I feel like I'm kind of like attacking these, it's not attacking obviously, but it's like bothering these people on Facebook, and it's the same people. And I just want to know like how you find other people outside of this social group real quick before you leave.
Sure, no problem. Go ahead, Case.
Well, I mean, the first place I would look if you've tapped out your own personal list is I'd look up Meetup, and I'd try to find, relationships are what sells, okay? You could go buy a list or something, but, okay, what about your church? What about the PTA? What about, is there a group that is, a mom's group that specializes in special needs kids in your community? Is there, what is it? Look in Meetup and you'll find lots of groups that meet, and there'll be one in there that probably maybe a hiking group. I had somebody recently who joined a hiking group and brought her deeper leaf with her and her purification and her aroma repel, and by the end of a couple of hikes, she had 2 new customers. So think out of the box, but think relationships, not just, I need, bodies. It's relationships sell. People buy from people they like, and they buy from people they like again and again and again.
Yep. And I would tell you this, if you've got a downline, look into your downline as someone that you haven't created a relationship with, and create a relationship with them, because you're tapping into their friends now, not your friends, right? So first of all, look down, find them, create that relationship, meet them one-on-one, get them, and then have them run an event that you do the work for if you need to, right? The second thing is that if you've kind of tapped out all those Facebook people, but you've had people that consistently said, I'm going, and never show, this is your opportunity to pick up that phone and call them and say, you keep saying you're interested, but you've never been able to make it. I'd love to meet you for coffee, right? Now you meet them for coffee, you create that relationship, and then you work to get them to host an event. So it all goes back to what Casey said. It's relationships. It's just, where are you looking to create those relationships so you're reaching outside of your own social circle?
One-on-one, not
Thank you.
Sarah, did you have another point? Your hand was still up there, or is that from before?
It's from before.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was a great question, Joy. Thanks for asking that. And so at this point, we're going to say goodnight. Thank you so much to all of you for coming. Thanks for leaders for getting people. Thanks for those that participated. Casey, thank you for your knowledge and for coming on. And let's go out and create some successful workshops, and then come back to your leaders and tell them, hey, it worked. All right, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
So much.
Thank you.
That's it.